Hey, it's Drybear. We're continuing our series of covering the Mythic Plus dungeons in Season 3, and today we're going to talk about one that really shocked me, Throne of the Tides. And what I mean by shocked me is that when this came back in the rotation, I was kind of surprised, but a little relieved, because I remember this dungeon being really simple and really easy, but they've made some adjustments to it that actually makes it one of the harder dungeons to complete a high key of in the current season. In fact, I do believe Throne of the Tides is due for some nerfs sooner rather than later, specifically on some of the trash pulls that exist in the dungeon right now. But we'll get into that as we go along. Luckily, the majority of the trash in this dungeon is pretty close to 100%. In fact, if you did every possible pull in the dungeon, you'd only get to like 110%. So that's why I was surprised, because so far the dungeon itself is pretty easy to clear. There's only 1 or 2 packs that you need to skip, and they're very easy to avoid. So for the most part, outside of those 2 packs, you just need to go through the dungeon and kill everything that you see. They also got rid of the giant jellyfish elevator and just allowed you to click and it takes you up automatically, which is great because I would hate to lose a timed key because someone missed the elevator or fell off. You'll start in this linear pathway, and I do recommend pulling the first 3 packs together in a single pull. The way this dungeon times out, you will want to use your Bloodlust on the first pull, which will allow you to use the Bloodlust again on the second boss and then again on the final boss pretty easily if you're clearing at equal skill level at around +1 or +2. So grab these 2 invaders, grab the invader with the snapdragons, and then grab the oracles and the invaders, pull them all into one pack, AoE them down with Bloodlust, and you'll be ready to start the dungeon. But this is when your problems start, because from here on out, there's going to be some pulls with trash mobs that are very difficult to deal with if you're playing at a high key level. When dealing with these oracles, you just want to kick the heal when they do it and kick as many of their damage casts as you can to help your healer out, but the big problem that you're going to run into first is going to come from these Najjar Sentinels. They have a horrible cast called Crushing Depths, which when it goes off on an enemy, on a player, it will burn them for 30 seconds with a nasty frost damage dot, and they'll get this big heal absorb, this massive heal absorb, which is almost all of their health bar, and that dot will continue until you finish out the healing, which means you're putting your healer in a really rough spot if you don't burn that down. I think the best way to handle this problem is just to have your DPS line of sight the Sentinel every time they try to do Crushing Depths. So if you're doing a fortified key at 20 plus, or whatever difficulty you and your group are running, just be aware that if you're having trouble with these pulls, you do want to line of sight the Crushing Depth cast from the Sentinels, because it gets really nasty. Then go into the next room, and I wish there was an easier way to pull this Ravager. I just think that you want to pull the first group with Bloodlust and then deal with the Sentinel by itself, and then you want to go into the next room and grab the Snapdragon with the Ravager. This is a brand new mob that they added in for Dragonflight Season 3, and it's not really all that bad. She has an acid spray cone that's really fast and kind of hard to avoid a couple ticks of. You just want to get out of it, and then she has a ground attack. And be wary that these Snapdragons will fixate on someone and chase them down, so the tank needs to be wary if you can CC the targets, or if you have Ring of Peace or something to help the target being chased down. That's very useful. And also your healer wants to be aware that someone might be burning a lot of HP if they get both dragons on one person. Then you go forward to where the jellyfish elevator used to be. You go up top and you come across this hallway here, which is actually pretty straightforward, except you're going to run into a double sentinel pull halfway through. So my recommendation for this, especially if you're pulling efficiently, is to grab the invaders along with the witch and the oracle halfway through, and then pick up all of the drudges as well and pull that as one giant pull. The invaders aren't really a big problem. The oracles we know can heal, and the tempest witch do cause a lot of damage, but if you have AoE silences with demon hunters, or if you had big AoE stuns like zap totems or leg sweep, things like that, it can help deal with the casts and burn these targets down really fast. Then if you're feeling really spicy, or if you're doing a difficult key, a key that's like at a lower difficulty, you can pull these 2 sentinels along with the invader and the 2 casters behind at the end. But if you're doing a fortified key or a really high key, I would highly recommend just doing these 2 sentinels together, stand near the pillar, and have your DPS line of sight the depths cast, because it is really, really nasty, and some healers are going to struggle with it more than others. Entering into the next room, you will find the first pack of mobs that we will skip. I recommend skipping the left side of of the room that has the double oracle with the Tempest Witch, just because it is what it is. You just want to skip one of the sides. You can skip the right side if you want, but I think you just need to skip one of these packs if you want to maintain efficient pulling. So grab the middle here, the Invader with the casters in the middle, and then you can grab the Ravager and the Vicious Snapdragons together as well, and then clear one of the caster packs on the side, either the left or the right. I like pulling the right, but it doesn't really matter too much. Then head over to the final pull. This is when you're gonna get a big one, a Sentinel involved with some casters and invaders. So for this one, if you have to, you can CC one of the casters, like the Tempest Wish on the left, and kind of burn through that and focus on the Sentinel, and line of sight the Depths cast if your healer is really struggling, and then get through that and go into the first boss room. Lady Nazjar is super easy. She doesn't need Bloodlust. Even I think on Tyrannical, I think you could still just do this without Bloodlust. The big thing here is you just want to make sure that people are avoiding the geysers on the ground, that they're spreading out for the chain lightning so you don't get too much cleave damage, and whoever gets the Tempest circle around them gets it away from the group far enough so that the orbs that come out don't cluster together on top of someone and one-shot them. Then you'll just go through the cycle of burning her down, then burning down the Honor Guard and the casters that show up, tank pick up the adds and pull them all together, get the casters kicked so they can group up easily, and then go back on her and rinse and repeat. Then you'll head backwards from the door that you came in, hit the little organ on the left side, and then come through and you will face off against the second boss, immediately Commander Ulthok. And just be wary that whichever side you left the mobs up on, you want to fight him on the opposite side of the room so that no one pulls those adds on accident. And if you're clearing at about your current skill level or power level, then you'll be getting your Bloodlust back at this time, around this time. And you do want to use it to kill a Commander Ulthok because he is kind of annoying, so you want to burn him down as quickly as possible. Now, he used to spread and fill the room with goo. He doesn't do that anymore. He just spawns oozes that do it, but this way it's not like a built-in soft enrage where eventually the room is covered in goo and you all die, specifically for tyrannical keys where you can have very long encounters. So you just want to deal with the oozes, try to keep them clustered together, CC them, ring of peace them, typhoon them, thunderstorm them, knock them back, keep them away, because you don't want them standing right up against someone and burning them down. And then you just got to deal with his frontal attacks and damage output and cycle through them to get through it. But it is nice to have Bloodlust for this, as he does hit pretty hard and your healer is going to be struggling quite a bit. Then go back through the same hallway that you came through, and you want to dodge these little electric eels. You want to stand at the middle of the pillars in between them to avoid getting hit and stunned by it. Go back down the elevator and you'll have left and right options to choose from. The left option coming off the elevator is going to go into Erunak Stonespeaker, the shaman boss, and the right will go to the final boss, Ozumat, which I would argue is much harder than the Mindbender tentacle guy. So what I recommend doing is going left here, grab the first Faceless Watcher with the Seer pack together, group them all up, kick the Faceless Seer's Mind Flay, and burn down the side adds as well, and just be wary of the AoEs that the Faceless Watcher is going to be sending out as well. Do the same thing again with the next Faceless Watcher and the Seer pack that's behind him, pull that all as one, and then grab the two Seers and the two Watchers together for the last pull in the hallway. Then grab one cluster of these little tentacloids here, these minion of Gershaws in the area of the boss, and then pull the boss. And with this, you don't need Bloodlust. You'll save it for Ozumat, the last boss, and you have it on cooldown anyways from the second boss that you just came off of. And this boss is actually deceptively difficult. There's a pulse totem that spawns that you have to burn down quickly, and other than that, the major problem with this fight is it's just a really hard heal fight, mainly because of the flame shock that he puts out. The flame shock has ridiculous damage output on the target that gets it, so if you have diffuse magic or if you have Cloak of Shadows or anything that can help your healer out, any kind of like anti-magic shield, things like that, it goes a long way because the flame shock does ridiculous damage. And then when the Storm Flurry totem comes out, just make sure that you avoid it and don't get caught in any of the earthquakes. Then once he falls down into his tentacle form, his little Cthulhu form, the little thing that comes off his head, then just line of sight the fear cast that comes. You can use the lanterns in the entrance in the room, even though they don't look like they're line of sight, they actually are, and then burn him down. You'll be heading into, which is probably the part that needs to be nerfed most in the dungeon, the Gauntlet. Now this Gauntlet sucks. I won't lie to you, this thing is completely severely overtuned and is very, very hard for a lot of team comps to clear competently when they're playing at their current skill level. So here's what I would recommend for this Gauntlet specifically. Make sure you pull all of these little goblins, these gilblins at the front, and pull them as one group. Try to keep them together and do lots of AoE, because their casts actually hurt really bad. When they're doing the poison spears combined with the aqua cast, the aqua blasts, it starts to hit insanely hard, and your healer is going to be really rough if you don't interrupt those casts regularly. Then this is where things get freaky deaky Dutch. Your biggest problem here is going to be the tainted sentries, the giant elementals. They have a cast called Swell, which pulses out massive amounts of damage, and that by itself isn't the biggest problem. The problem is in the little infinitely spawning unstable corruptions. These little unstable corruptions that when they die, they pulse a curse that makes all people hit, everyone in your party hit in 60 yards, take 1% increased shadow damage for 8 seconds, and it deals damage when it explodes as well. So when you get a lot of these infinitely spawning unstable corruptions on you and you burn them all down and they pop all at once, you can get like 30 stacks of this debuff, and then when the Tainted Sentry does the shadow damage swell pulse, it's going to basically one-shot everyone in your group. The damage is actually ridiculous. So your goal for this gauntlet is to make sure that you try to limit the amounts of curse stacks that you have on you when those unstable corruptions die, for when the giant Tainted Sentries do their swell. So ideally, you would pull the first Gilblins by themselves, go and grab the Tainted Sentry along with the Gilblins behind him, and try to stop yourself from killing the corruptions until after the first swell cast from the Tainted Sentry. Just single target the Sentry and the Gilblins, then burn them all down, and then you want to wait and pull back a little bit. The reason we do this is because these little unstable corruptions are spawning constantly. You want to drop your stacks immediately to keep your healer from running out of mana instantly. Once you drop the stacks, you can continue on, grab the Tainted Sentry with the Gilblins behind them, do lots of AoE CC and all that, and then do the same process again and again. You're going to be getting infinite corruptions spawning all around you and give you the debuff. Just watch your stacks and get rid of them as often as you can. Then the next pull gets really spicy, because depending on how many of the corruptions you have around you and how many stacks you have on your group, you may want to just bloodlust this double sentry pull so that your healer can get through it, because when both sentries are casting swell or they cast swell back to back, it becomes impossible damage to deal with. It's actually ridiculous, and it probably will get nerfed hopefully soon. So you want to be aware of that, and you can bloodlust through this if you need to, or if you dropped your stacks just before, you should be able to burn these guys down really quick and then jump into the last boss, the Ozumat fight. Now this one has two major mechanics you want to pay really close attention to for your whole group and do right, because if you do them wrong, you could end up just wiping yourself. The Ozumat fight itself, the tank needs to be in melee range at all times. If the tank ever leaves melee range, the Ink of Ozumat freaks out and starts throwing these massive waves at everyone, so the tank can't leave melee range. They need to stay on top of the Ink of Ozumat the entire time. He'll also periodically do a giant sludge frontal in front of him, so just make sure no one's standing next to the tank or behind the tank for when this happens. And then periodically you will see these purple shadow ink rings appear around 2 or 3 party members. You just want to get these as close to each other as possible, because these will spawn patches on the ground that you can clean up, and then you'll spawn oozes later. And you want these to be as close as possible so that when you get this water pulse coming out from your guardian in the fight, you'll be able to use that to suck up the ink on the ground and clear out the area so you don't cover the whole entire arena with ink. Then once you're done with that part and you've cleaned it up properly, then you'll have sludges spawn and splotches spawn. The big elementals, you want to kick them and interrupt them constantly because their cast hurts real bad. And then you also have the sludges, and the big thing about the sludges is you just know that they do have an explode on death animation, which hurts really bad. If anyone gets hit by 1 or 2 of these on high keys, especially on Tyrannical, it's just going to one-shot you. You're all going to die. So you want to make sure that you group all the sludges up, kill them down, and then start moving away from them as they die so you don't get hit by the AoE at the end. Then you just repeat this process, keeping the splotches together as close as possible, cleansing them with the waters, and then burn the boss down. And then when that's done, you can go into your big giant form and attack Ozumat directly when you have your big buff and all of that. As far as it goes for bloodlusting, I think it's far more useful to bloodlust on the first part of the fight, because the second half of the fight just doesn't last that long. It used to be a lot longer, but it doesn't last that long anyways. I remember when this dungeon was first released, we often would bloodlust when we got to the second half, but I think the first half is way harder now. You need the bloodlust there, assuming you didn't use it for the double sentries on the entrance. And that's Throne of the Tides. I hope this is helpful in getting you through your keys this week and beyond. Let me know what you think about this dungeon or other dungeons that you'd like me to cover down below in the comments. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.